Hey there folks, this is Dmcjediman, and I'm coming to you with another video. This one is the first in a new series I'm starting. I haven't decided what I'm going to call the series yet, but essentially, once a month or once every couple months, I'm going to take some time to show off some cool things from my collection, as well as tell some of the stories behind said items in my collection. You know, I got quite a bit of stuff actually gathered here. I probably gathered a little more than I really should have, so this is probably going to be a bit of a longer video. Before I start showing stuff off, though, first off, I want to give a huge shout out to Darren Orange, who has hooked me up with this microphone that you see before me. You know, this should improve the audio quality of my videos. Even more so when I really figure out how to use it. This is actually the first video I'm recording with it, so hopefully it all sounds good, and if not, I'll do some troubleshooting until it's purring like a kitten, as they would say. You know, also, don't forget, if you haven't already, check out my gaming channel sometime. I play a lot of different video games over there. Currently, I'm working my way through Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, Lego 2K Drive, and Lego Jurassic World. And also, if you're viewing this for the first time, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like my content, and hit the bell icon to stay notified of when I upload new videos. Alright, with all that out of the way, we got a lot to get to today. I guess I will start with the hardest items to show off, since they're ones I can't actually physically show you in my hands, but I did go and take some photos, and I will describe each of those in detail and tell the stories. So, first up, since I am actually recording this the day after the 1-year anniversary of the tragic passing of Jason David Frank, who was, you know, my hero, I have to show you guys the 2 Jason David Frank autographs I have prominently on display. The first one is a Green Ranger 8x10 photo that I had I made myself. You know, the design may look familiar because I actually based it on the original fan club kit signed photos from like 1994. That's why the Green Ranger image in that, like the one front and center, is actually the same one from that pic, as is the coloration behind it. But, of course, I wanted to represent all aspects of the character, as well as have the logo. So, above the Green Ranger, I added the Mighty Morphin logo. And I put some inset photos in there. One of Tommy in his morph sequence for the Green Ranger. Another of Jason David Frank wearing the suit without the helmet on. Another of him using the Dragon Dagger to summon the Dragon Zord, as well as one with him with the Dragon Zord in the background. And then I put the Dragon Zord power coin in next to him. I actually mailed that to Jason David Frank's karate school, Rising Sun Karate, and he sent it back to me signed. So that's how I got that one. The one above it, the White Ranger picture, is, again, you know, based on that same concept, though I had to do a lot more, since the Green Ranger one, I started with an image of the fan club photo, and basically, you know, added everything and got rid of, you know, some of the other things that were there, like the fake signature and whatnot. You know, with the White Ranger, I basically had to take that same background color and add everything else. So I put in the White Ranger photo, the Mighty Morphin logo above him, the Tommy morphing the White Ranger, the inset photo of Tommy as the White Ranger without the helmet on, an image of Tommy with his, or maybe it's not Tommy with the Zords, but showing the Falcon Zord and the Tiger Zord and the White Battleborg. You know, also have his 2 power coins for the White Ranger there, the Tiger Zord coin and the Falcon Zord coin. A little inset picture of him in the Ninja Ranger costume, the version where you can actually see his eyes so you can tell exactly who it is. And an image of him with Saba. That one I brought to Boston Fan Expo in 2019. That was the year that Jason David Frank was there. It was actually the second year I got to go. The first year is actually another thing I'll be talking about in a little bit here. But, you know, it was my first time meeting him. You know, the wait was long, but boy, am I happy I waited in that line, especially considering, obviously, what happened, you know, just a year ago. But, you know, I eventually got up in front of him. You know, I'm a man of limited resources, so I could only really afford, you know, a photo with him and an autograph, which was a combo of $50, you know. He, you know, signed my White Ranger picture. He posed for the photo with me. And then afterwards, you know, he noticed that I was wearing my Green Ranger shirt, you know, which he's like, hey, you want me to sign your shirt too? You know, and of course, I'm, you know, not used to going to conventions and whatnot. So I'm like, but I only paid for the one autograph. He's like, you're my fan from Vermont. You get the hookup. And so he signed my Green Ranger shirt. I'm going to try and get that. Yeah, you can see the signature there, assuming I don't cover it up with my hand. But yeah, I have very rarely worn this shirt since obviously anytime it'll go through the wash after this, it puts the signature at risk. I actually have a NASCAR shirt that was signed back when I was a child, but the signature is very faded. You can barely tell who it was anymore. What I need to do is I need to get myself a special t-shirt frame to hang that up along with my other Jason David Frank stuff. The third photo in that area that I also wanted to talk about, and this actually, I'm trying to remember exactly when I got it signed. I think it happened after what happened to JDF. But Toku Spirits, I think it was, had a signing with, I'm probably going to butcher the name, unfortunately. I think it's Shiro Izumi is the actor who played Barai Yamato, the Dragon Ranger, in the original Super Sentai series, Koryu Sentai Zyuranger. That's the series that the footage that would become Season 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was taken from. So I attended, you know, like, it was a virtual panel sort of thing, you know, through, I think it was like Zoom or something, where people could field questions, and of course you had to pay to get things signed. So I paid for the image to be signed that showed both Barai, you know, wielding the Dragon Dagger, as well as the Dragon Ranger behind him. And even though it's not technically a Jason David Frank item, I have it on display with all my other Tommy items there. So that takes care of those items. The next one I'm going to talk about is the Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd signed 8x10 photo from the Back to the Future films. Now, this is yet another image I made. You know, I went online, found a nice side-by-side of the 3 movie posters, because I'm going to continue to get signatures added to it as I can. The first one added there was Christopher Lloyd, which I didn't actually go and get this, you know, added myself. My good friend Armin, who goes to a lot of conventions, he ended up attending one that Christopher Lloyd was at, so I sent him with that picture and the $80. That's the $80! Now I wish I'd paid him off! Sorry, I'm obviously a big Back to the Future fanboy, but I sent him with the money and the photo. He got Christopher Lloyd's signature added to it. And then back in 2018, the first year that I was able to go to Boston Fan Expo, or Boston Comic Con if you'd prefer, the whole reason I went was because Michael J. Fox was going to be there, and I desperately wanted to meet him and get his autograph. I would have loved to have gotten a picture with him, but the prices were way too much. Like, to get just the autograph alone was $125. And I'm glad I went there in person, because you look at that signature and you would not believe that that's his signature. Like, if I hadn't been there in person getting it signed, if someone got that signed for me, I'd take one look and be like, no, you're shitting me. That can't be real. But it is. But anyway, though, So that line was really long. Like, the people I went with, they were actually getting ready to leave, and I was still waiting in line. It's like, please, just wait. This is the one reason I came here. I have to get this. Luckily, they did wait. I got up to them, you know, got the signature. Like I said, wish I had gotten a photo. I may actually have to look online, see if there's any, if there's a lot of photos from that event. Maybe someone snapped one of them, you know, where I was near him or something. That would be cool. But obviously that takes a place of prominence. Sticking with autographs now, we're going to move on to the next item that I can't have right in front of you. And some of these I maybe could, but like I said, they're hung up on the wall. It's a little difficult to just untack them and tack them back up. I don't really want to go through all that, but this next item is yet another one that I had to, you know, send in for. This is Tim Curry as Taurus Bulba from Darkwing Duck. Now, once again, you know, I found the images of him from Darkly Dawns the Duck, as well as an image of him from Steerminator, put them side by side. That way I had both versions of Taurus Bulba. You know, I believe he was doing that signing through GalaxyCon, so I sent the item to him. They, you know, put it in front of him, he signed it. I never, unfortunately, that wasn't one of the items I took a picture of him signing, so I don't have, you know, like that kind of proof, but they put the official Tim Curry sticker seal on it, and they also had it authenticated by PSA DNA, I believe. You know, even though I hadn't paid for that service to be done to it, so it is authenticated. At some point, I gotta get the Michael J. Fox, Christopher Lloyd one, and the 2 Jason David Franks authenticated once I can afford them. But yeah, Darkwing Duck's one of my favorite shows, and Tim Curry is probably my second favorite villain after Negaduck, who is definitely villain number uno. So anyway, the next item, and this is, I believe, the last item that I didn't... Oh, actually, there's one other item I wanted to do, but I guess I'll have to wait until next time. Anyway, the last item that I don't physically have here in front of me to show off is my Ultimate Collectors Series Lego Super Star Destroyer Executor. And don't kid yourself, folks. I don't care what people say, it's Executor. That's the Executor. Vader executes people, you know? So anyway, that little tangent aside, the Lego Super Star Destroyer was definitely a big item I got. You know, it took me quite a while to put it together. You know, it's a lot of pieces, and it's a pricey set. You know, I obviously wanted to make sure I got one that was fully complete, you know, so I bought one sealed in the box on eBay. It cost me $1,000. But it is probably one of the most impressive pieces on display. You know, and if I ever have to move, I do not relish trying to move that beast. Like, that's the sort of thing where I may have to get, you know, like a casket to put it in, have like pallbearers bring it down the stairs. Not that I really ever intend to move. You know, it took me, I'd say 2.5 weeks to put together, but it is definitely the center point of my Star Wars media shelf, and eventually I'll show off some of the other things on that shelf. I mean, eventually I'll probably have a lot of my favorite items shown off here. That being said, now let's start getting to some of the physical items I have in front of me. So I guess we'll start this off with this. This is a Thanos Infinity Gauntlet bank. This was made by Monogram. You know, still has the tag on the bottom. No electronics or anything. You know, I kind of wish that it actually was hollow. It would be cool to put my hand in and be like, fine, I'll do it myself. This was one of the items that I actually received from my good buddy Armin. He's the same one I mentioned who went and got the Christopher Lloyd autograph for me. This was in a box of, or really a storage tub full of cool items. You know, I actually keep this on display on on the shelf behind me. In fact, it normally sits right next to Nakatomi Plaza up there. Next off, show this one off. This is a John Andretti Star Wars Episode 2 NASCAR hat. Now, John Andretti, back in 2002, drove Richard Petty's famous number 43, and I've always been a Richard Petty fan, and I've always been a Star Wars fan, so, you know, Star Wars and Richard Petty together? Yes, please. You know, I'd had the die-cast cars and whatnot, but you know, I only recently, in the past few years, discovered, hey, they made a couple other pieces of merch. You know, the hat's the easiest one to get a hold of. I'm still trying to find the t-shirt that at some point I hope to get for my collection. You know, it's not the, it wasn't the first time Star Wars was a part of NASCAR, and it wouldn't be the last, but this was the only time it was on the 43 car. So that's a cool piece for my collection. Here's a odd little piece. This is a Back to the Future inspired mini skateboard. You can see the 1985 flux capacitor has a Mr. Fusion on it. You know, the thrust reactors. I think I found this in like a toy bin at a at like a thrift store, maybe like Recycle North or something. But when I saw it, I'm like, hey, that's supposed to be Back to the Future. Well, for $1, I'm buying it. Next up, we got a pair of Chewbacca slippers for when you want your feet to be nice, warm, cozy, and fuzzy, and still represent your love for Star Wars. I think, yeah, they have eyes in them. It's hard to see them there. You know, like it almost just looks like regular slippers at this point. That being said, I don't really wear them that often, but once in a while, especially on a really cold day, I will slip them on. What next? Next, I guess I'll show this off. This is the Star Wars Celebration 2 Commander George Sakal figure. Now, this is one of the few Star Wars figures that I have not taken out of the package, though I would like to track down a loose one at some point for my collection. This is essentially George Lucas, which is why the first name is George, and the last name Sakal is Lucas spelled backwards. This was a promo, or this was exclusive to Star Wars Celebration 2. You know, I think the likeness is pretty good on it. You know, unfortunately, since it's in the packaging, the helmet, you know, kind of obscures most of the face aside from the nose and the beard. But, you know, this is one of the ones, like I said, I will not remove it from the packaging. And it does, it displays pretty nicely on my shelf. Okay, this is an interesting item with a bit of a gross story. So this is the Nestle Coffee Mate Italian Sweet Cream Boba Fett bottle. Now, this, let's see if I can find a date on this. There's actually 5 different bottles. This is the only one I got, and I'll explain that reasoning in a moment. Okay, it has a April 2016 date on it. So, these came out, you know, I'd say the year of Rogue One. I don't drink coffee, but I also don't like to waste things if I can help it. So, because of that, you know, being a big Boba Fett fanboy, I saw this like, well, I gotta have it. It's Boba Fett. So, I bought this, and I drank it all in order to empty the bottle out so I could then clean the bottle and have it in my collection. Oh, that is some gross tasting stuff if you're just drinking it straight. And, well, fell over. Speaking of gross drinks, this, some of you may recognize. This is the Ghostbusters apple water that came out, I want to say, yeah, for Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, I bought this from my local Dollar General. I only bought the one because I didn't have a lot of money at the time, but I'm glad I only bought the one because I actually filmed a taste test for this. And it was some of the most vile, foul, and disgusting tasting anything I've ever tried. Like, no joke, this is probably the thing that got me the closest to yakking on camera. You know, which is why I never went and got another one, even though it came with this neat little mini puffed figure. I just realized my camera is super blurry. That is not good. But yeah, disgusting drink. Toy's cool, but not really worth it for what I had to pay for the bottle. Next up, this is actually a very recent purchase. I actually bought this along with a bunch of other NASCAR autograph and relic cards from my buddy Pat. This is a Mark Martin card that has an actual piece of a diamondback rattlesnake in it. You know, now I'm assuming they took the skin from an already deceased snake, because I don't like snakes, but I do not like the idea that they would actually hurt a snake just to get the skin for the card. Like, that'd be majorly fucked up and not something I would ever want to consider that they would do. And you know, I'll show this off too. This is something, I actually used to have it on display, but my buddy Tyler got kind of upset at it, so I ended up finally taking it down. This is a Bear Brick Yoda keychain. You know, it's got, you know, Yoda's features on the face, even though it's a bear and kind of tall. Every time Tyler would see it, it's like, ew, what is this thing? That don't look like Yoda. That's stupid. Why do you have that? So finally I took it off of display, and then he's like, why'd you do that? It's like, because you kept, you know, making fun of it. I'm not going to keep it on display if you're just going to make fun of it. Okay. Next up, show this off. This is another item I got from my friend Pat. This is an actual piece of coal from the wreck of the Titanic. Has a certificate of authenticity on the back. And the coal itself is contained in the bag there. And there's an image of the chunk that it was supposedly taken from. Now, obviously, I know, you know, when it comes to something having a certificate of authenticity, that doesn't mean that it's actually true. But considering the fact that coal is one of the most plentiful items, you know, from the wreck site of the Titanic, it stands, you know, to reason that this more than likely is actually from it. Now, I have not been haunted by any stokers, because I have heard stories of some people who have been haunted by the ghosts of stokers from getting, from having these pieces. So, speaking of Titanic, let's stay on that for a moment more, because this, at least this is a replica of the Titanic sister ship, the Britannic. Now, that was the third sister to the Titanic, you know, commissioned into a hospital ship during World War I, and actually was sunk on November 21st of 1916. I'm recording this video on November 20th, 2023, so 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20. That is 107 years, the anniversary tomorrow. And more than likely, the day I actually get this uploaded will be, you know, the actual anniversary. I bought this in a lot with a few other Olympic class ship replicas. Still don't have the whole set, and I don't have all the boxes that these came in either. I think, though, I do have the Britannic's actual box, if I remember right. Alright, this next item is another one that has a lot of meaning to me. This is a 1965 Ford Falcon. Now, this is a 1/18 scale die cast put out by Road Champs, I think. It has opening doors, though I don't want to really force the doors because it's been a while since I've actually picked this up. See if I can get that door open. Hold on, let me set that down because I do not want that to break. Especially once you hear the story of this, you'll understand why. The steering wheel steers the front tires. Unfortunately, this already does have a little bit of damage. Particularly, it appears that one of the mirrors is missing. Let's see if I can get the hood open. Want to do this carefully because, like I said, I do not want to cause any damage to this at all. There we go. So there's a close-up of the engine. So to give you guys the backstory on this die-cast car was actually something I bought for my father as a gift, because he actually owned a 65 Ford Falcon Futura convertible in the last few years of his life. You know, it brought him a lot of joy, and he collected, 1/18 scale die-cast cars, so it was something that, I wanted him to have, a die-cast replica of it for his shelf. But to go along with it, I also got him a little ceramic replica of our family's white German Shepherd, Maggie May. Of course, Maggie and Dad were inseparable, once they found each other in life. So I put these both together, like I actually opened the die-cast car box when I got it, put this in, secured it in there so it wouldn't be like, flopping around, and then close it back up. He was overjoyed when he got this for Christmas. So when he passed away, I got a lot of his 1/18 scale cars. This was one of the ones that I had to have. Like, I specifically requested that I end up with this one, along with the Maggie May figure to go with it. And I've kept them together on display. It's been about 12 years since my dad passed, and it's been about 7 years, 6 or 7, or somewhere between 6 to 8 years since Maggie May crossed the Rainbow Bridge as well. I know, though, that, she's probably with my dad, gazing down on the rest of this fool world, wondering what we're all doing as a species. Okay, next up, show off this. This is the 2011 AJ Allmendinger Valvoline 1/24 scale die cast. Has opening trunk or deck lid, if you will. Opening hood, showing off the engine. The wheels are steerable, but you're not going to get your finger in there to try and move the steering wheel. Also has actual working roof flaps. I believe this is the Galaxy paint finish. Now, this is, one of those cars I actually desperately wanted to get, because I just mentioned about my dad. He was a big fan of Mark Martin, who drove a very similar paint scheme to this Valvoline scheme. So having, what essentially is like a retro Mark Martin paint scheme on my favorite 43 car, you know, it's a no-brainer. Let's see if there's any sort of serial number on there. There does not appear to be. So let's set that down carefully. Next off, I'll show this off. Christmas is coming, so what better way to celebrate the holidays than with my very own gigantic Christmas Darth Vader plush. He's got the Santa hat, you know, and plenty of holiday cheer. I don't think that this guy has any electronics, or if he does, I don't really remember or know how to activate them. But yeah, I found this at some thrift store, probably a Goodwill or something, for $4. Not a bad price for a giant holiday Darth Vader, wouldn't you say? Put him on there. Next off, I'll show this off. This is my Tough Tracks Gravedigger truck. Now, unfortunately, this is not the one I owned as a kid, because back when I was a kid, I had a bunch of these. I had this one. I had Carolina Crusher, which did Carolina Crusher somehow made it through my childhood. I actually still have that truck. But unfortunately, Gravedigger was lost to time, as well as No Problem, and any of the other ones that I don't have photos of from my childhood. So I do not know what other ones I had, but I definitely had Gravedigger, No Problem, and Carolina Crusher. Some point I'm going to track down a No Problem to have all three, and once I do, I might even try and replicate the photo I have of me as a kid with these on the floor in front of me. You know, these can get pretty pricey nowadays, especially old Gravedigger, since that is the best of the monster trucks. Next up, I'll show off this. This is the deluxe version of the Art of Star Wars Rebels. Now, this has a cool thing when you open the top. That's pretty neat, isn't it? The book is contained within there. You essentially get a couple things. You get the book itself, at least a version of it. It's full of art from the show Star Wars Rebels. I actually won this in a contest on the Facebook page, Star Wars Book Smugglers, I think it was. The deluxe edition also comes with these prints in this little slip case. But just that, you know, just the box having the lightsaber sounds and the light up lightsabers on the front is truly awesome. You know, of course, this book obviously does go for a pretty penny because of the limitedness of it and the special features. Set that down there. Next up, show this creepy thing off. This is a Grogu, otherwise known as Baby Yoda plush. It is, I believe, a handmade one or a knockoff one that's kind of creepy looking, to be honest. You know, obviously doesn't have a cloak or anything. I'm pretty sure I got this from either Battery Street Jeans or Recycle North. You know, definitely an odd one. This is a hardcover copy of Vixen 03 by Clive Cussler. Clive Cussler, in case you don't know, is a wonderful fantasy mystery writer. Not fantasy, a wonderful historical mystery writer. Like mystery, adventure, historic. He's probably best known for writing Raise the Titanic, which was the book that got me into him, as well as Sahara, which was turned into a movie with Matthew McConaughey, if I remember right. I actually haven't seen the movie because, unfortunately, the movie adaptations of his books, which there's only two of them, for Raise the Titanic and for Sahara, they've never lived up to being as good as, you know, the books. But I bought this book, not for me originally. I actually bought this book for my dad, you know, because he was the one who really got me into Clive Cussler, because I'd read Raise the Titanic. I loved it. I might have read Night Probe as well, since that tied into the Empress of Ireland, but I hadn't read any of the other ones. But, he got into them and started telling me that I needed to, read the others, and I did, and I got heavily into them, But my dad always collected books in hardcover whenever possible, and this was one he didn't have, so I found it at the Fletcher Free Library book sale. Bought it for, I think, a couple bucks, gave it to Dad. Did not realize until after I had given it to Dad that it was actually signed by Clive Cussler. So that was definitely a surprise to me. Obviously, I didn't, ask him to have it back, because, I'd given it to him. It was my loss, but when he passed, this was one of the things I did end up with. So, I keep this in my collection. It's not my only Clive Cussler autograph. I've got a couple others. Unfortunately, Clive Cussler himself actually passed away back in 2020. Though, others are still carrying on the characters, and the storylines that he started. Like I said, not my only Clive Cussler autograph, but probably the one that means the most to me, since it has, a story to it. I never, unfortunately, got a chance to meet the guy myself. I want to get a couple of his books, still, track down signed editions, specifically Raise the Titanic, Night Probe, and the Titanic Secret. Those would be the ones I would want autographed, but, obviously, this one will stay in my collection even if I do get them, because, of the connection to my dad. Let's see, what's next? We'll show this guy off next. This is my vintage 1989, I believe. Yep, 1989 Super Saiyan Vegito 16-inch figure. I actually have had two of these, but the first one fell off a shelf and got damaged. This one was damaged too, but I was able to glue the leg on, so he still stands. In fact, you guys can see him in the background of every single one of my DBZ Kakarot videos, since Vegeto's my favorite character, and thus I have to show him off. Okay, next up, this is a much more recent item to the collection. This is the Boba Fett Holiday Special Animated First Appearance Funko Pop. I actually picked this up from VGA. My good buddy Will, hi Will, had this, and I got a good deal on him, and now he resides on a shelf here. Boba Fett is my favorite Star Wars character. Next off, I actually had the hardest time tracking one of these down, and I still need to get another one in the package, but this is a Zelmax Z-Toys Speed Champs, whatever you want to call it, DeLorean. Now, this is an old car, I mean in terms of the die-cast. This is actually from, I believe, the 80s or 90s. See if I can get the camera to show off some of that. Now, the coolest thing about this DeLorean is that for 1/64 scale, it has opening going doors. Now, this is something that I had the hardest time actually getting. Supposedly I may have owned one of these as a real young kid that I guess may have ended up in the Montpelier River at the urging of some other person I knew back when I lived there. After that, though, once I was, able to take care of things, every single one of these I would ever find for sale anywhere would have a broken door. It would be either the right door would be broken, or the left door would be broken, or both doors would be broken. I finally was able to track this one down as part of a lot on eBay, but I still need to get another one in the package. Up next is another oddball item. This is a Mega Bloks Mark Martin car that I never had the front end to, so I attached a couple cannons to it, because if if NASCAR needs anything, it's giant cannons attached to the cars, right? At least I've always thought this was really cool. It's like a post-apocalyptic NASCAR car. Up next is a Christine Betamax tape. Now, I have a lot of different Christine media formats. I've got, the soundtrack on CD. I've got the regular VHS tape, the reissued VHS tape, the DVD, the Blu-ray, This is the Betamax tape, though, which is probably the more hard one to get. Now, let's see if I can open up and show the tape inside. So, it has a thing on it that says SVP values Rebobiner, please rewind. I don't know if that's because it was, somewhere foreign or something, but it's a pretty neat item to have in my collection. I still have to track down a few other formats. I don't have the limited Blu-ray of Christine. I don't have the soundtrack on vinyl, but having the Betamax is pretty cool. Alright, next up is another very weird item. This is the Matthew Good Black Market Surgery on the Line Manifestos, 1998 to 2000. Now, this was a book that was packaged with a specific version of the Matthew Good Band CD. I've managed to hold on to this throughout the years. It has a bunch of oddball things in it. I may have to reread this someday. It might even tie into some of the songs. I'm not sure. I've always gotten a what's the word I'm looking for? I've always gotten a laugh from one thing. It's on the very last page. There's a list of 10 things I would love to see, but no, I never will. And some of the stuff there's just oddball stuff. But the one that always made me laugh, because I've got juvenile humor, is number 9 on the list. To invent a shrinking machine so I can fuck Barbie and then steal her Corvette. You can't make that shit up. But yeah, that came with like some special version of the Matthew Good Band CD. I think it came with a poster too, if I remember right. Anyway, next item. This is another one that I had this when I was a kid. It got damaged or destroyed because I was a shit kid, who broke most of his toys. So when I got to my adult years, I had to buy this again. This is the JRL Back to the Future radio control car. Now, fun story about the original one I had. My dad had ordered it from some company online, and when we got it, it didn't work correctly. Like, something was broken in it where it wouldn't, like, turn a certain way or something. So they had to, mail the company. They had to send a replacement of something. All that work we went through to get fixed just for me to fucking break the damn thing. These are getting a lot harder to find, especially with the box. I actually got a really good deal on this. It's a decent interpretation of a DeLorean. I've certainly seen worse ones out there. Set that there. Next up is another autographed item. See if I can get this out, without damaging it, or well, I'm not going to damage it, obviously. I'm just trying to see if there's a way to open this to show it off better. Because it looks like I taped this thing up like Fort Knox, but when you hear the story behind it, it makes sense that I would go to such lengths. Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize this was that this was taped up like this. Okay, well, I'm not going to be able to get into it. It looks like not with current things. I will get into it after the recording's done and take a picture and post it here to show, but I'll still tell the story about it. So, basically, I had gotten the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book, and I'd read it, I enjoyed it, and I wanted to continue reading the series, so I had ordered this from an online bookseller for the price of like $2 and something or $4 and something. They sent this to me. You know, I go to start reading it, open it up, and it's like, holy crap, this is autographed by Douglas Adams. You know, it's like the guy was dead. You know, he'd been dead for years. You know, so his autograph goes for quite a bit of money. Now, obviously, I have no intention to sell this, but dang was I not floored by the fact that I received a signed copy from a bookseller that probably didn't even know it was signed. If they had, they certainly wouldn't have been charging, you know, $2 or $4. They would have probably been charging closer to $400. You know, if you haven't read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, it's pretty good. That being said, we do have another signed book here, and this one I can actually get into. Now, this was a book that was part of my childhood growing up. You know, the Phantom Toll Booth. It's a wonderful book. Also a pretty good animated movie. So, the author, Norton Juster, had come to the Shelburne Museum, and I had a friend who actually worked at the Shelburne Museum, so I actually sent him with this to get signed for me. But it is such a great book. I actually probably should buy another copy of this, because obviously I don't really want to do, you know, read a signed copy. That, you know, and of course we lost Norton Juster recently, like the past like 5 to 7 years, I think it was. So as the years go on, it will probably go up in price. But if you haven't read the Phantom Toll Booth, you gotta read it. It's a kid's book, but it's a good kid's book. Alright, next up, another autographed item. I know there's a lot of autographed items in this, but those have some of the biggest memories for me. This is my Cars of the King Richard Petty book. Now, I actually have quite a few Richard Petty autographs. This is the Richard Petty autograph that means the most to me, because this is the Richard Petty autograph that I got signed in person. All other Petty autographs I have been from items that were either given to me as gifts or items I bought that just happened to have his signature, you know, or, you know, some cards and whatnot that I bought specifically with his signature. I've actually got one other Richard Petty autograph that we'll get to here that's got quite a story behind it, but this is one of my favorite Petty books because it, see if I can do this without. So it's got photos and diagrams throughout, you know, ranging not only through Richard's racing career, but it even goes into a few of the years after he stopped racing. Also has a guide to modeling in it. Like this covers from, actually it doesn't just cover Richard, it also has Lee Petty cars to start. But it goes all the way up to 92, and then it covers 93, 94, 95, 96, and has a brief snippet about 97. Also has a little bit about the haulers, which is cool too. But yeah, this book, I've had this book for a long time. So when Richard Petty came up to Vermont to fund a road, my good buddy Pat, who you may remember me mentioning earlier, he knew how much of a Richard Petty fan I was. So he drove, he brought me all the way down to Barrie to fund a road so I could meet Richard Petty and get his autograph. So I got this signed. I got my picture taken with the king. I will also put that up here for everyone to see. Next up, this is another item that I got from Pat, but there's a bit of a classic story behind this. This is a Troy Aikman autographed photo. Now, back when I was a kid, again, something I had as a kid, I had to get again. I wrote a letter to Troy Aikman, and he sent me back a photo that I believe was just like this one. I think it was probably the same photo itself, signed by him. I don't remember if it was personalized or not, but, of course, kids being kids, over the years, it got either lost or damaged. Probably damaged, knowing me. So, I'm not really into football anymore, but I still have a soft spot in my heart for Troy Aikman and Deion Sanders. They were my two football heroes growing up, so my buddy Pat, this was something he got in his shop to sell, and he knew I was a big Troy Aikman fan, so we worked out a deal for this, or he just gave it to me. But either way, I have it in my collection again. Up next is another autograph. This is a Garage Pass from 1986, signed by J.D. McDuffie. Now, J.D. McDuffie, for those of you who don't know, he was a NASCAR driver from the 60s, 70s, and 80s who, over his long career, he never won a NASCAR Cup race, but he was always there. He was an independent driver, and tragically, in 1991, he lost his life in a fatal accident at Watkins Glen. I actually was watching that race on television that day, so it always left an impact. That left an impact on my life. So I've always kind of tried to collect J.D. McDuffie stuff whenever I could. And his daughter, I think it was his daughter, had started selling some stuff, from the archives. And this was one of the items up for sale, at an affordable price, which I never thought that I'd ever get a J.D. McDuffie autograph for an affordable price, because, when it comes to, famous people and tragedy, usually equals expensive. I mean, try finding a Jason David Frank online now and see, for a real one, you're going to be paying a pretty penny. It's kind of sad how much people overcharge sometimes for stuff like that, but, I got this. I got a few other things sent to me as well, including I want to say it was a pit pass signed by JD's wife, Jean McDuffie. So obviously I keep that in a safe spot. Now here's another item with a really cool story. And I'll show off the other autograph on the other side as well. But this image I bought from a local car show for $5. It was in a frame, it was just the photo. I was thinking, I just thought, well, it's a Richard Petty item. I collect Richard Petty. I don't care what it is, as long as, it's not going to break my bank. So $5 I paid for it, though. If I had known what was special about this, I probably would have paid quite a bit more. Like, as much as I actually had on me at the time, because after I left, that area and was walking away, I'm looking at this closer, and I'm like, wait a minute, this thing's signed. And signed it is. It is signed by Richard Petty. Very, very faded right there. Kyle Petty, which is a little better, easier to be seen. Yeah, the Richard's really faded. Like, the R for Richard starts there and it goes across there. And then in the upper corner, it's signed by Lee Petty. Again, that one's fairly faded. Like, the only one that was easily, seeable was the Kyle Petty one. So, sorry about that, 3 of the 4 racing Petties on one item. So, I had this for a few years, and then obviously I got a chance to get it authenticated from JSA, and all 3 signatures are real. That makes this quite a piece. For $5! And in case anyone's wondering, I do have the 4th Petty, Adam Petty. I actually bought a autographed hero card of him from my buddy Pat. And on the other side of this is a signed Richard Petty hero card. I actually have 2 copies of these that are signed, the one in blue, and I also have one signed in red, which you don't see Petty's signature in red very often. Next up, this is another interesting item I got for a lot cheaper than I probably should have. This is the Dragon Ball Z Hero Collection number 4 dual autograph card. This is signed by Chris Sabat and Sean Schemmel, the voice actors of Goku and Vegeta that both make up the character Vegito, who, as you may have remember from earlier, is my favorite DBZ character. Now, this is numbered 405 out of 500. These cards were put out in Japan, I think, originally, before being slightly altered and put in packs sold here in the U.S. And there were other autograph cards. I think I got this on eBay for like $5 or $10. The person apparently did not know what they had. Now, someday I want to actually meet Sean Schemmel and Chris Sabat at a convention, because if I could, I'll have a image made up. They'll have Gogeta and Vegito, including Super Saiyan 3 forms of them, because Super Saiyan 3 is awesome. Fight me. But that is definitely another cool piece. This has an interesting story behind it, but it would be even more interesting, had this come to fruition. This is a souvenir program for Vermont Comic-Con. This was the 2015 show. I want to say this was year 3 of Vermont Comic-Con, or year 2 or year 3. It wasn't the first year. And some of the guests that were there was, Joe Caramanga, Cliff Rathburn, Blair Shedd, Dan Parent, Charles P. Wilson III, Rochelle Davis, Brian O'Halloran, and Bob Camp. And some of those names just mentioned, I actually have signatures of. Brian O'Halloran, Charles P. Wilson III, Dan Parent, and Blair Shedd. I got things signed by all of them. The signature that's on this, though, is not them. Because Vermont Comic-Con was where the announcement was made, and unfortunately it didn't stay made, they unfortunately let him go from the project, but that was when, hold on, now I'm having a brain fart on the name. Colin Trevorrow was signed on to direct Star Wars Episode 9, so if that had stayed, I would have in my hands the signature of a Star Wars film director. Now, obviously, he did direct the Jurassic World trilogy, so it's still a cool signature to have. And I was there, actually, in the panel that they were doing. They had a panel, I think it was about, I forget exactly what it was, but, the 501st showed up in there at the end, with him and made the announcement. It was surreal. But yeah, another cool story for another interesting item. Up next is yet another autograph. This is, okay, again, drawing a blank on the name for a moment. Oh man, this is Naomi Grossman. She is the actress who played Pepper in the American Horror Story franchise. Now, this was, again, at Vermont Comic-Con. I want to say this was year 4 or year 5, and this was when I was actually working in a bit of a semi-official, or unofficial role for Vermont Comic Con. I basically, was the guy at the door making sure that, badges were right, that you were you were allowed in and whatnot. Dressed up probably as a Jedi, so if you actually did see a Jedi at Vermont Comic Con making sure you were allowed to go in, that was probably me. But, not many people went to her table the first day, because it was kind of far out of the way. So the second day, the owner of Vermont Comic Con actually had me dress up as Twisty the Clown using a suit that they rented from Old Gold, and had me stand over near her table directing people there. So, in fact, they even did an official photo and had me photobomb as Twisty. And for doing that, she signed an 8x10 for me for free and took a photo with me. I'll put that photo up here, as well as maybe another picture or two of me in the Twisty outfit. Just looking to see if there's anything else aside from the item I hold in my hand right now, because the item I hold in my hand, I think, might be the last one that we're going to show off today. Yeah, I guess this is the last item. Well, okay, the last two items, I guess, since there's something on the back side of this I'll show off too. So this is a bumper sticker for the Vermont local radio station 999 The Buzz. Now, again, interesting story alert. So, my school went on a field trip to the Buzz Studios, and I actually got to meet, the people who were hosting at the time, which was Monkey, Picard, and Matt Grasso. And they actually chose myself and another student to go on air and defend the band Linkin Park against Matt Grasso's attacks on it. At least I believe it was Matt Grasso who was on the air with us, asking us why we liked the band, why people should bother listening to them, what was good about them, that sort of thing. Now, I had only heard, a few of the songs from the radio. My friend, I think his name was Jeremy, if I remember right. I'm not 100% sure, but he had the CD, had heard all the songs, loved them. Well, when we were done, recording, they actually gave me the Linkin Park Hybrid Theory CD, and I got my bumper sticker that they'd given us signed by all three of them. As being a foolish kid, of course, I stuck it onto my desk. Only years later did I actually carefully peel it off and put it, in safety. Unfortunately, also as a stupid kid, I actually sold the original copy of that CD that I had been given. I have since acquired another copy, though, and this one will not leave my collection. And on the other side of this is another sticker. This is actually something that was from my dad's collection. It's a sticker signed by David Allan Coe. He's probably best known for doing the song "You Never Even Called Me by My Name," which is a pretty good song. If I don't say so. Definitely worth checking out. But yeah. That's obviously something that I got, from some of my dad's belongings. And that is going to wrap up this video. It's quite a long video, I know. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this video. Hopefully you saw something cool or unique that you've never seen before. Or, got to hear an interesting story and you're like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. But, thanks again for joining me on this journey through some of my collection. Like I said, either every month or every couple months, I'm not sure which yet, I will do another one of these where I'll show off some more goodies, some mainstream, some obscure, and tell you the tales behind, some of the acquisitions. There was actually one other item I was going to have in this video that I completely forgot about until recording, so that'll be part of the next one. Once again, thank you, Darren Orange, for the new microphone. Hopefully I'm able to use it correctly, and hopefully the quality of this audio is better. I'm I'm trying to do this with the fan running still too, because it gets a little warm without some air circulating. So hopefully I'm using the microphone right. If not, you know, I'll try and learn how to use it better. But thank you again, and I hope everyone enjoyed this video, and I'll be back with another one soon. This has been DMCJediman, and I'm signing out. Peace, everybody.